Welcome back to Amerisogyny. I'm your host, Hannah Blue. You're listening to episode 74, The Ties That Bind Us. Well, listeners, it's the weekend, and as promised, I'm back with more stories. Now, I told you Amerisogyny is not a political podcast, but so much has happened this week, we have to sit down and talk about it. So let's get into it. Are you ready for our first stop? New York. Madison Square Garden is where Trump held his latest rally, and the racist jokes flew like fireworks in the sky. Well, one alleged comedian has Puerto Ricans enraged, and rightfully so. Let's get into what he said. He is Tony Hinchcliffe, and he hosts a podcast called Kill Tony. Hinchcliffe thought it would be cute to say, there's a lot going on. I don't know if you know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. I think it's called Puerto Rico. And he didn't stop there. He also said that Latino people love making babies. And then he went on to tell a dirty joke. Well, this has Puerto Ricans fired up, as they should be. The campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris called it a vile racist tirade against Latinos. That's exactly what it was. But Trump's senior campaign advisor, Daniela Alvarez, said, the joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. Is she serious? Adding further insult to injury, Representative Maria Elvira Salazar, who represents Florida, said, this rhetoric does not reflect GOP values. It most certainly does. Listeners, I already told you. This is the rhetoric that conservatives spew amongst themselves. In their churches, in their homes, on the job. Oh yeah, this is exactly what GOP is founded on. Racism. I've also told you they don't mind racism. What they do mind is if it's said out loud. I have no patience for anyone trying to distance GOP away from this. This is exactly what they believe. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez said, it's super upsetting to me. My family's from Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican. The thing that is so messed up, I wish more people understood, is that the things they do in Puerto Rico are a testing ground for the policies and the horrors that they wish to and that they do unveil in working class communities across the U.S. Bad Bunny and Ricky Martin support Harris, and Martin shared a clip of Hinchcliffe saying, this is what they think of us. He's exactly right. And guess what? He was shadow banned when he shared the post. To be shadow banned is to be suppressed on social media. Keep in mind, this rally was held 9 days before the election. Here's some more comments. David Rim is a childhood friend of Trump. He called Harris the Antichrist. Radio host Sid Rosenberg said the effing illegals get whatever they want. Here's how Hinchcliffe responded to the backlash. He said, these people have no sense of humor. I love Puerto Rico and vacation there. I made fun of everyone. Watched the whole set. I'm a comedian. And what did Trump say? He claims he doesn't know Tony. Now, he's running for president, the most important, powerful office in the U.S. But he doesn't know who's going to speak at his rally? You're right. Trump said, I don't know him. Someone put him up there. He also claims he didn't hear the joke. But guess what? He didn't denounce it. J.D. Vance, oh God, his response was even worse. He said, maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke, but I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing. Listeners, did we not talk about this in a previous episode? There comes the gaslighting. And we've also talked about this little trick during our episodes on narcissism. When someone hurts others, they try to twist the knife and turn it back around on them. If you noticed, he didn't condemn the joke. He's condemning the people who were offended by it. These are the people who want to run this country, Trump and J.D. Vance. Here's another tactic they use that I told you about in a previous episode. Deflection. They tried to turn this around on Kamala Harris, saying that the Democrats are being divisive with this rhetoric. How? The joke wasn't told at her rally. Vance said Kamala Harris's closing message is essentially that all of Donald Trump's voters are Nazis, and you should get really pissed off about a comedian telling a joke. If that isn't gaslighting, I want you to give me a clear picture of what it is. And Trump's cult is spewing the same nonsense as J.D. Vance. Oh, what? People can't take a joke? Oh, it was just a joke. That's how racists operate. To racists, everybody who does not look like them, meaning white, is a joke. Their skin color is a joke. Their culture is a joke. Everything about them is funny because you know what? They're not human like them. Hinchcliffe didn't stop with Puerto Rico. He also made anti-Semitic remarks. Yeah, that's right. He talked about Jews and Palestinians. And of course, he made jokes about Black people. I mean, that's like going to a lynching and there's no news. The husband of Vice President Harris, Doug Emhoff, is Jewish. And he said, there is a fire in this country, and either we pour water on it or we pour gasoline on it. Well, let me tell you something. The Puerto Ricans are not taking this line down. They are fired up. Let's continue this conversation on our next stop, Chicago, Illinois. Marisol Padilla says, we cannot continue to stand back and allow for anyone to come and publicly disrespect us completely as an island, as a people, and as a community. Jose Lopez is with the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, and he says we have to punish this man Trump and his campaign for their MAGA stupidity, for their anti-immigrant language. And both of them are spot on. How long, America? How long are we going to let this happen? When will the majority of us stand up and say enough is enough? That comedian was invited to Trump's rally. They knew exactly how he thought before he opened up his mouth at that podium. This is GOP's rhetoric. Don't let their representatives fool you. This is what they say in the dark and in the light. They say it because they believe it. Stop making excuses for racist people. If they make racist jokes, they're a racist. If they mock people due to skin color, it's racist. I don't care if they have Black people in their families or Black friends. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Some biracial families have the worst racists in them, and I'm talking Black and white. Don't let that fool you. We're going to talk about a country that is not fooled, and they are beyond tired of conservatives and their racism. And it all goes down on our next stop, Australia. We have Australian listeners that tune into us faithfully, and I love it. I also love what Australia decided to do for Candace Owens. Close their doors. Yep, that's right. She's been blocked from coming to Australia. I guess not everyone is a fan of her little speaking tour. According to the Australian government, Candace Owens poses a threat to public order. And Immigration Minister Tony Burke said, Australia's national interest is best served when Candace Owens is somewhere else. From downplaying the impact of the Holocaust through to claims that Muslims started slavery, Candace Owens has the capacity to incite discord in almost every direction. And he's right. Candace Owens is absolutely disgusting. The things she says Disrespectful doesn't even begin to describe her. And she's proud of it. This is how she presented herself. Known for her controversial takes and unwavering stance, Candace is set to light up stages across Australia and New Zealand with her bold and unfiltered perspectives. Well, Australia said the devil is a liar. She says what the Nazis did to the Jews is completely absurd and bizarre propaganda. In her mind, the Holocaust never existed. She called Juneteenth ghetto. She hates feminists, Muslims, and transgender people as well. Now, some of her supporters said Australia is crossing a line. I don't think so. One of her supporters posted, regardless of what you think about what she says, restrictions on freedom of speech are never a good thing. Australia doesn't have free speech. What a hellhole. Now where have we heard that before? Ah, yes. When Donald Trump referred to some countries as spit-hole countries. That's the cleanest way I can say it. But Australia is gaining support for their decision. Someone posted on social media, she is free to speak. She is not entitled to a platform or a visa. Countries can decide who can enter. And another posted, we don't want her either. Spot on. MAGAs got dragged all over X, formerly Twitter, as they should have. Someone said, it's freedom of expression in Australia, not speech. Also, the right is not absolute. It's a limited right that carries special responsibilities. And another posted, they see how far we've fallen due to disinformation being called free speech. And someone else posted, it seems pretty hypocritical of the Deport Millions movement to question the judgment of another sovereign country's Minister of Immigration when they deny entry to a MAGA mouthpiece. The Anti-Defamation League is a pro-Jewish group, and they said it's a victory for truth, for decency, and for the millions of Jewish souls and millions of others whose memory she so shamelessly desecrated. The group's chairman, his last name is Abramovich, said, the decision by the government to bar Owens sends a resounding message. Australia has no place for those who mock the suffering of genocide survivors and insult the memories of the 6 million Jews who perished. This is a line in the sand. That's right. By blocking her, Australia is saying, look, the Holocaust happened, and if we allow this woman into our country, it means we support her lies. And that's with any country. I think New Zealand needs to think long and hard about letting her in. Because if they do, it's saying the Holocaust never happened when we know it did. And it's been reported that Immigration New Zealand is also looking at her visa, but they haven't made a decision. My opinion, she's getting exactly what she deserves. Australia is definitely doing the right thing. They are standing up for what's right and standing against the hatred she spews. Every country should block her and anyone who thinks like her. That's where you have to hit these people, where it hurts, their pockets. The ties that bind us are love, compassion, empathy, and respect. Candace Owens and conservatives as a whole do not embrace these values. I am so proud of Australia for standing up for itself and standing up against hatred. Shout out to our listeners in Australia. Love, it's a beautiful thing. And I'll tell you what, there is nothing more pure than love that is witnessed in children. And this little girl impressed the heck out of me. She went viral for carrying her sister to the hospital and back home after she was hit by a car. Let's get ready for our next stop, Israel. Israel is another country who listens to the Amerisogyny podcast, and we're sending you all the love from the U.S., especially this cute little girl. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but I hope so. She is Kumar Suba. This little princess is only 6 years old. When asked why she carried her injured sister to a hospital and then back home, she said, "I carried her because she couldn't walk. Her sister's name is Samaya, and she's 5. Kumar says they were on their way to sell boxes of biscuits when Samaya was struck by a car. Now, I think you can guess what I'm thinking. The person that hit this baby should have taken them to the hospital. But she knew her sister was in need of treatment and she couldn't walk. So she slung her over her shoulders and carried her to the hospital by herself. There were no ambulances to take the babies home. So she picked up her sister again and walked in the sun barefoot for more than an hour to get back home. And thank God a man offered to give them a ride." You have a comedian, a grown man, calling an island of people garbage. But here's a 6-year-old child all the way across the world carrying her sister because she knew she needed help. This is why I will take kids over adults any day of the week. The girls have 6 siblings and live with their mother. They live in a small tent held up by wood, sandbags, and rubble. The sisters were selling cookies to raise money for the family to buy Pampers and milk for their baby brother. Kamar says, "We want better clothes, bedding, utensils, everything. But what's most important to her, she wants to see her father again." After they fled from northern Gaza, the family lost contact. Kamar says, "We miss him a lot. More than the moon, we miss him. We want to go back and see our aunties, to see our dad, and to see all of Gaza and people go back." Israel is in chaos right now, but this brave little girl is proof that where darkness lies, so does light. Kamar's mother said the family was displaced after airstrikes killed dozens. She said they moved from the north because of hunger, and they've been displaced 4 times. She said, "My husband is lost in the north. When he took us to the checkpoint, we lost contact. When he brought us to the border here, he said goodbye to the children and said, 'May God be with you.'" She says she lives in fear of the Israeli airstrikes, and they keep her awake at night. She also says that she and her kids often go without meals, and on some days, they have no food at all. But she's very proud of her daughter, and she should be. She says she took her sister, who carried her, healed her, and brought her back. It's not within her strength to carry her, but she had to. This story brought me to tears, and I'm not one who cries often. I want to help this family. I want you to help this family. When you are that brave and that young, you deserve recognition, and you also deserve to have your needs taken care of. This is what love is all about. Caring about people, seeing to their needs, not ostracizing them, putting them down, or hating them. This little girl has more heart than most of the adults I've known in my whole life. Her mother is proud of her, and I'm proud of her. Kids are my heart. They always have been. Let me share a little tidbit with you that one of my friends told me about. Her name is Christy Slanina, and she lives in Hubbard, Ohio. I grew up with Christy, and when I tell you she has a good heart and always has, it's true. Someone posted on Facebook that a young toddler with autism was missing, so I posted it. Well, she reached out to me and said it was a scam. She said what they do is they use clickbait, elderly people and kids with disabilities, to get people to repost their post. And once they do, they change the post. And sure enough, when I looked at the post again, there was a picture of a house for rent. But Christy said, sometimes these people are not renting homes. They just want to get your information for alleged background checks. And once they do that, they steal your identity. So to all the advocates like myself who go around posting, that's what we do. We share posts, especially if it's about a kid with special needs. Just be cautious. Take a quick moment to do a Google search just to see if it's real. If it's not, don't share it. It's a shame we have to do it, but this is the world that we live in. I thank Christy for letting me know, because I don't want to help any scammers take advantage of other people. So Christy, if you're listening, hey girl, and thank you. Now Now let's get ready for our last stop. This story is right up my alley because I've been in love with ancient Egypt since I was a child. I'm glad this story broke because I'm so tired, beyond tired, of people pretending that ancient Egyptians in Africa were not Black. I don't know where we get this rhetoric. Yes, I do. I know exactly where we get the rhetoric that white people existed everywhere and Africans were slaves everywhere for millions and millions of years. It is twisted and it's a lie. Well, the remains of a 27-year-old princess have been found. And guess what? She was Sudanese. Her mummy belongs to the Perth Museum collection, and she's been there since the 1930s. But she was buried inside of her sarcophagus over 2,700 years ago. The museum wanted to know how she looked, so it asked Dr. Chris Wren to create a digital reconstruction of her face, and he did. Once he began building a 3D image of her skull, they quickly found out she looked nothing like the traditional depictions of ancient Egyptians. Based on her facial measurements, they suspect she was Black and from the sprawling empire of the Kingdom of Kush. And today, that's called Sudan. And Kush controlled Upper Egypt. Dr. Wren said, everyone was familiar with the face on their sarcophagus, which looked like an ancient Egyptian with a long face. But her skull didn't look like an ancient Egyptian skull. They tend to have a long cranium, a long narrow face, while she has kind of a wide cranium and a small face. There is no way I can make her look comedic. I didn't really have any artistic interpretation over any of that. It was all based on measurements. I started looking for skulls with similar orbits and found Dinka skulls that are Sudanese, which are very similar looking. I looked into when she was alive, and it was the 25th dynasty, which was about 700 BC. So I thought, what was happening in ancient Egypt at this time? That was when the ancient Kushites took over. The Kushites were Sudanese. The woman was known as Ta-Kerhib. She was a princess or a priestess. She was between the ages of 30 and 40, but it's difficult to guess her age due to damaged teeth. It was reported her sarcophagus was found in the late 19th century and sold in Egypt to a businessman. It was later donated to Perth Museum. Now, isn't that something? She's beautiful. I love history, and ancient Egyptian history is my favorite. This story made me so happy. I'll say it again. Racism has no place in anything, not in the past and not in the present. Well, listeners, I'd love to bring you more stories, but I'm out of time. If you learned anything from today's episode, feel free to follow me. By now you know where. Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Samsung, and more. The weekend is here, you guys. So you already know what I want you to do. Be easy. Have a good weekend. And for people in the U.S., if you have not voted already, make sure you vote on November 5th. Shout out to Puerto Rico. We hope to see you pop up on our analytics. I will be back with more stories. Until then, take care of yourselves and have an awesome weekend. And as always,